you have, and sometimes we don't realize, we have such a strong sense of urgency with everything that we do because we know that the life of an actual performer and dancer is very short. So it's like you can get injured, you can start getting old, you can, and you don't have that much time. It's like, and you're going to reach a peak, and then after that, you ain't peaking anymore. It's like, and it is what it is because it's a physical thing.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can get really caught up with being like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Okay, I did this show. What's the next show? What's the audition? And so you start to lose kind of the appreciation of the present moment.
Welcome to another episode of In the Arts. This podcast is a deep dive into the arts industry where I talk to creative professionals about what they do and why they do it. I am your host, Tahney, and today I had the pleasure of talking to 10 times world Salsa champion Mario Acosta-Cevallos. We talk about what it was like for him to find success in dance from a young age, the process of closing one chapter and opening the next as he moved from Canada to Australia, and we muse about the intersections of art, body and music, considering the possibilities, the freedoms and the limitations within this beautiful art form. I hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks for joining us today, Mario. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So just to start off, I thought I'd ask you, so outside of salsa and dancing, what sort of aspects of the arts do you engage with?
Aspects of the arts outside of dancing. I think based on my background of playing piano for so long, for like 12 years, classical piano, I try to involve myself with like finding new music, and music is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And kind of the artistry of finding new ways that people want to interpret or make music. One, and then I guess what's another artistry? I think being gay and in gay culture, drag queens, because I think drag queens really, their artistry and their vision of how they either want to interpret a song or how they conceptualize their look. It's very interesting. And so in that sense, I can take a lot of inspiration or just appreciate their art form.
Yeah.
So yeah, music. What else? I've started to get into musicals.
Oh, cool.
I didn't grow up with musicals. Being Latino wasn't really much of our culture, but starting to watch some. Watched one the other day, Bright Star at Chappell was amazing. I left crying.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. So yeah.
And for drag queens, like, are you seeing that more like live in Melbourne, or are you following some more people like online and through television? And
I do watch RuPaul's Drag Race. Typical.
I listen to their soundtrack when I'm at the gym. I'm just like,
yes. Yes, drag queens are something else in this world, but they're amazing. So other than RuPaul's Drag Race, which I am religiously following, and right now it's the UK season. It's just amazing. But other than that, I do follow some. I've met some drag queens living here.
Oh, amazing!
Which are really good, and I like to see them.
Yeah.
Cool.
Have you ever dressed in drag?
I've done drag once in Halloween. My friends convinced me. It was like 2015, so 4 years ago, back in my hometown, Edmonton. So it was it's definitely a production.
It is.
It was 5 hours to get ready. It was a very big ordeal, but it was fun.
It's fun. I did it this year for my birthday. My friend came down and I was having a birthday party, but we just decided to dress up. But it took us like a whole day of shopping the day before. It was just, huge. And then it took us a couple hours to get ready. I was a drag king, which was, it was amazing. And everyone who came, they would like open the door and they'd be like, what's a dress up? There's like this panic in their eyes. I'm like, no. I'm like, I just wanted to do drag today. And they're like, oh, okay.
No, it's fun. It's definitely fun.
And when you are an observer rather than someone who's dancing, what does art do for you?
I think art makes me feel different feelings, different emotions. So it's very interesting for me to watch something or to experience it. And I think it just pulls out kind of emotions that I'm feeling within myself.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of art is sometimes it makes you realize that either you're really happy or you're really grateful for your life, or at that moment you're a little bit sad about something and you haven't really thought about it and you've kind of like tucked it in, and it's easy to kind of, how can I put it? It's easy to kind of not mask, but kind of like not feel things, because day-to-day life is really busy and demanding and you have to keep going. And so when you sit down and you're watching or hearing someone's art and they're making you feel emotion, it kind of makes you open up and realize things about your own life, and you get to appreciate that person's artistry.
Yeah. Do you remember your first connection with the arts?
My first connection with the arts, let's see. I think a big thing, and I think it kind of makes me laugh, is music is such a big thing in my life, and I listen to music consistently. Like, my friends actually find it so annoying how much I listen to music. Like, if I have to get ready and I have 10 minutes to get ready, it's like, okay, where's my speaker? Like, turn it on.
Yeah.
I'm always listening to music. And I know that from a young kid. My parents told me the story. They used to take me with them when I was really little to their work. And so they had a commercial cleaning company. So sometimes I'd have to be with them and they would have to work overnight. And the only way I would fall asleep was they'd play the cassette, like they'd play the sound system on the cassette. And so I would fall asleep to listening to like Spanish, like cumbia, merengue, like Spanish music you dance to, that would put me to sleep. That's and then the second that the cassette would finish, and you have to go and flip it over, they would know because I'd like wake up crying.
Oh my God.
Yeah, someone was like, you were so annoying because all you wanted to do is listen to Spanish music. So I think music was kind of the first connection of the arts, other than just dancing, but I would say music.
Yeah, and when did you start pursuing dance?
Well, I started dancing when I was 4. And being an only child, my parents put me in almost everything you can think of. So dancing was one of the hobbies that my parents put me into. Yeah. I started with flamenco dancing from Spain. And then I went into Ecuadorian folklore, which is where my background. My parents are both from Ecuador. And then I started with salsa roughly when I was like 8 or 9. Yeah. And so dancing just kind of kept evolving. And I just loved, I think everything that I like to do, I love learning new things. Yeah. So at that time, it was like learning how to do taekwondo, learning how to play piano, learning how to play trumpet, learning how to dance. And so just that eagerness of learning and trying new things and pushing myself is what I just love doing. Yeah. And I was lucky enough where my parents financially and just morally would support me in doing that. So it just kind of kept evolving. And now 22 years later, I still dance. And
so did you gravitate? It's interesting because you're from Canada, but you're pursuing more Latino dance forms. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is there a big community in Canada that are engaging with Latino dance and things like that?
Yeah, I think Latin dancing, it's really big throughout the world. And the beauty of Latin dancing is just there is, I think, Latin music and Latin culture can be so exciting and lively and just can bring a lot of happiness and just joy within the music. And so then the dancing kind of just speaks for itself. And I think the great thing, I mean, I'm Latino, I'm Hispanic, so I can understand the music and I can really understand it. But I think it's very interesting to see non-Hispanic people, non-Hispanic cultures appreciate Spanish or Latin music, because it just makes them feel something. Like they hear it and they want to get up and dance, right? They hear and they're like, they can picture like movies like Dirty Dancing and being in Havana, being in Cuba, and be like, oh, I want to be like Patrick Swayze. I want to dance like that, right? So, within Canada there is a big Latin dance community. That happens, and I think it's big throughout the world. Obviously some countries are bigger than others, but it really connects to more than just Latin Hispanic people, which is amazing to see.
Saying that, I just think about when I go down Lygon Street to go to the cinema, and across the road there's it's like a pizza place, and up the top there's always dancing up at the top. It must be like ballroom or salsa, but it always makes me feel so happy because I can just see these people and they're just moving so quickly.
And having fun and laughing and sweating and like,
and it's just like a Monday night and, you know, people are enjoying themselves. It just seems such a fun thing to engage yourself with, but also challenging as well, which is rewarding.
Yeah. With salsa, so I predominantly do salsa. I've done all genres mostly, but right now I teach. And most of my career has been as a salsa dancer.
Yeah.
But the beauty of salsa is just it's a social dance, and that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. Okay.
So with the social dance, and I always tell my students, and I'm like, you know, the things we work on in classes and what I teach is to give you the ability to pretty much, if you want to, like, and I've experienced this myself, you can travel anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
And you will, like, 90%, 95% will find a Latin social dance night, like a salsa night or bachata night in that city, in that country. And you don't even have to speak the same language as that person. You can play charades to be like, do you want to dance? And it's like, don't have to speak, you won't understand each other other than the language of dance.
Oh,
and it's
beautiful.
so much fun to do that and travel, get to meet new people that you wouldn't have met otherwise. But it happened to be through dancing, through Latin dancing, through salsa.
That's beautiful. And when did you start gravitating towards salsa over the other forms of dance that you were engaging with?
Funny enough, so I started when I was roughly 8 or 9, and my dad got me into it. He dragged me into a class. I didn't really want to do it. I don't know why, ironically enough. And I started, and again, it was that challenge of like, oh, this is fun. This is new. This is cool. So I started when I was like roughly 8 or 9. And then, I would always say my dad was kind of like my dance mom, like my dance manager. And so he would always ask around. As I kept wanting to perform and working with instructors, kind of the feedback we got was, okay, like if you want your son to continue dancing and you want him to get better, then he needs to do other forms of dance. So he needs to go into ballet, he needs to go into jazz, ballroom. And that's kind of what happened. So I started doing ballet jazz roughly when I was 10. And then when I was like 13, 14, I went into ballroom.
Okay.
And then I competed in ballroom, like both Latin and standard or ballroom dancing for almost 9 years. And I went like hardcore, like practicing 6 days a week, competing, represented Canada and internationally. Did nationals, went internationally with it.
And what was it like being a teenager and being quite serious about dance? Did you view it as a profession at that time? It
was really interesting. I guess growing up, like, I mean, I had friends and I had a friend circle and I would see them, but I also had an outside friend circle based on the extracurricular activities that I did, right?
Yeah.
So I would have like friends that let's say in the ballet jazz world, right? I would have friends that was my group. I was in that senior group. Those were my friends for that. And then I had my ballroom friends, and I didn't really get to spend much time with my school friends just because I was always busy. I was always either in practicing or I had comps or I had performances or I had to travel. So like my growing up was very different. Like I was used to being busy. I was used to having a schedule. I was used to having timelines since I was really young.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Did you ever have a moment during your teens where you wanted to kind of break away from that? That you felt stifled? Were you always kind of very inspired? And
no, I guess I was always inspired to do more things and learn more things. Yeah. And I guess I always knew that not everyone will have those opportunities. Yeah. And I'm pretty much I would say I live my life being an opportunist. So it's like I know that not a lot of kids growing up are going to have parents that are just able to allow them to do all these things. I also know, like, my parents coming from Ecuador, they'd always kind of remind me, being like, look, like, we work hard to give you these opportunities. Like, if you really want to do them, we're not forcing you, but do them well and really, like, try. Just because it's like, not just try for us, but try it for yourself. Try it because you like doing it and you want to do it. And we like seeing you do new things and be happy, and we're proud of you to challenge yourself and then see the outcome.
Yeah, having those supportive parents is like so important.
My parents.
Can you imagine who you would be without?
Oh, my parents are amazing. Yeah. Love them to pieces. They're crazy as bits, but they're amazing. They are very supportive.
And after high school, did you do any more training, or is this in the dance world you're kind of like already on on your way? Do you need to go to a certain school, or do you kind of just start engaging with studios? How does that work?
Yeah, interesting. I think everyone's dance journey is so different. But for myself, so when I was like 14, 13, I still was doing salsa. At that time, I started teaching when I was like 15. I started teaching adults. And so I was kind of with the school. Yeah, I was really young. And then I started teaching. But at the same time, I was still competing, not professionally, but I was in the amateur division. I was still competing for myself, like with my partner in ballroom and in Latin. And so my first ballroom partner, we danced together for almost, I would say 6 years, 7 years. So we grew up together from like 14, 15 when we started all the way to like 20, 21 or something. And yeah, I think it just depends what you're wanting to do. I still had my coaches that I would work on. I still was taking classes. Then I was also teaching. And then when I was 20 is when I had my own dance company.
Wow.
So I tried to balance between like nurturing, and I think it was around 18, 19 when after I finished high school. Funny enough, my parents, they were the most supportive parents, but they always reminded me that dancing was just a hobby. So it was that's the other thing. It was the weirdest thing growing up where like my parents would be like, do this. You want to do that? Okay, let's do it. You want to try this? Fine, blah, blah, blah. But remember, dance is just a hobby. You have to go to school. Yeah. You have to go to university. It's like, yes, okay, I do want to go to school, but I'd always just kind of brush it off and be like, okay, when we get there, this will be fine. But once I finished high school, that's when it was kind of like, okay, you're going to uni. And it's like, wait a minute. I want to go to school, but I don't know what I want to do yet. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I realized if I'm not passionate about something, I don't really succeed in it. Yeah. I'm just like, ugh, boring, next. Yeah. I have to be passionate about something because then I'll push myself. Then I'll actually work towards doing it. So when it came to school, I knew the value of going to school. I knew the value of education, and I really wanted to, but I knew about myself at that point. I was very aware that I was like, if I don't find something I like, then I'm not going to do it. So around that time is when dancing went from hobby to, okay, you want you want to make this your career. And that's when my parents were like, fine, if you want to make this your career. My biggest thing with my parents, or their biggest thing with me, was like, yes, be a dancer, nurture your own dancing, but, and just like as anything, any sport, like your time window, your time frame of being a dancer is very small. Okay. So think of, what are you going to do afterwards? Yeah. So for my parents, were like, look, do you like teaching? And I was like, yeah, I actually like teaching. Like, I love working with people. Yeah. Then my parents were like, fine, not only develop in these years being a dancer and being a better dancer, develop being a better teacher, develop how to be a better teacher. Because if you don't nurture that, then when you're done dancing, or when you can't dance, or when you're injured, if you're not a good teacher, or if you're not like, you don't have a reputation of being a good teacher, then you kind of wasted some really good years to nurture that. So I think around 18, 19 is when I kind of had that switch of like, okay, I want this to be my career. I know I want to keep dancing. I know I want to push myself, but I also know that I don't want to be a dancer that works at a cafe. So I have to teach. Okay. Then it's like, okay, you have, this is also another learning thing. How can you become a better teacher? So then you can build a reputation of being not just a dancer, but also a good instructor and coach or mentor teacher.
I mean, that's such a good way to be thinking when you're 18 years old as well. But it shows that you had this like drive to make your career sustainable.
Yeah. Funny enough, when people ask me, I was 20 when I decided to have my own dance company.
Crazy.
I was so naive. I was like, now looking back at it, I'm like, what were you thinking? But it was great, and I loved it. But yeah, my parents they owned their own businesses. So I think growing up, they've influenced me to just I just wanted to be my own boss. Like I was like, it's nice to work for someone, and I like working for someone, but being your own boss, making your own set of rules, doing it your way. I just, at that age, I was like, I'm doing it. I don't care.
How long did you have that studio for?
So the dance company, we would rent out different studios. So I rented out the ballroom studio that I would use, that I was training in. Yeah. But I had Salsa Vitus for 5 years. Yes, 5 years.
Oh, cool.
And so Salsa-Cevallos, the dance company, does not run anymore because I don't live in Edmonton. So when I moved to Australia, that's when it was all finished.
Okay, yeah, cool. And you're also the 10 times world salsa champion, which is incredible. Can you tell me about can you just tell me about the first time you won this title and what that was like for you?
It was the first time I won this title. I remember I was 16, and it was at the 2010 World Line Dance Cup in San Diego. And at that time, I was already competing. I was 16, 17, and I started competing against like adults and professional categories like a couple of years before that. And went to this competition, and I was in 2 categories. I remember I was in the professional on 2 division, which is just a style of salsa. And then I was in the first ever professional male same gender division, which is very it was kind of groundbreaking at that time because there wasn't really any same gender divisions divisions in competitions.
So was your partner
male?
Oh, cool.
Male, yeah. And so that year was the first year it happened. And so kind of the background story was kind of like there was in salsa right now, you have obviously the very like the traditional male and female dancing together, lead and follow, and then you'll also have like same gender. And so within the same gender there was a very famous couple named Eli and Yen from California. And so they started competing. One was the follow, one would do the girl part, what we say, right? The follow, and one would lead. And so before 2010, they started entering competitions because he loved kind of what the woman did. Like he loved spinning and he loved doing all those things. And he wanted to create art being a follow. Yeah. But up to that point, he would enter competitions and it was kind of a gray area because it was like, wait a minute, you're competing against a female now, right? And so there is that sort of physiological kind of and physical advantage that men have where you can be a little bit stronger, you can have a different influence, I think. Yeah. So up until that point, they weren't really allowed to compete because there was no division. So when 2010 happened, they made a division. But unfortunately, Yen died the year before that. My God. Really sad. So it was being part of that division in 2010, being 16. And so at that time, my coach and I, we just did what's called shines. And shines is like just footwork. Yeah. So we never really danced together as a lead and follow, but we did side-by-side shines. And that was when I entered that competition. There was 2 divisions, and that one was kind of on the back burner. That one we did it for just shits and giggles. Yeah, it was a routine that I learned with him 4 years ago when I started, and he made a joke like, "Oh, why don't we compete? Why don't we use the routine that you learned back when we started?" And I'm like, He's like, "Yeah, let's just do it." And I'm like, "John," because his name is John, not Vise. I'm like, "John, we haven't practiced nor performed that routine in 4 years. Like, what do you mean you want to compete?" He's like, "Come on, you'll be fine. Like, let's do it." I remember the performance before the comp because we did it 4 times. We did a performance before the comp, quarterfinal, semifinal, final. Performance for the comp was probably one of my worst performances. I didn't remember anything of the routine. I blanked out. I was like, "This is terrible. Why am I doing this?" And I remember my coach was like, "Look, let's just do this." And I trusted him. He's like, "Let's just do it. We'll practice it again and we will be fine." Yeah. And I was like, I'm competitive and I also trusted him. So I was like, okay, fine. And then we did the quarterfinal and it got a little bit better. Still had some mistakes. Yeah. Okay, we made it to the semifinal. Did the semifinal, was still pretty like good, couple mistakes. And I was like, okay. And then went into the final. And so when the final happened, we were the most in sync. Like it was the most together we ever did it. And then we won and it was very I remember I was in shock. Like I was like, "What? Really?" I was like, "Really?
Are you sure?"
Sure. But it was very it was a really great experience. I remember both my parents were there. Yeah. So it was really fun.
You've since gone on to win 10 more times. Yeah. No, 9 more times, sorry.
Yes, I have a lot of time on my hands, clearly.
Yes. So how have you maintained that elitism And like, what are your like rituals and motivations and why you?
Yeah, so I've competed in the same gender division as well. Won that a couple more times.
Yeah.
And then I also competed in the soloist division. The male professional solo division, and that's kind of, those two have been my bread and butter of the championships. And so I think for me, I just really, it's ironic. I love salsa music and I love music.
Yeah.
And so I think when it came to the art form of salsa, I tried to make sure that I find music that I love, find music that kind of represented me, and I connect really well with Latin jazz, like this sounds funny, very campy, like happy Latin jazz. And the beauty of salsa is there's so many styles of salsa music, depending on the era it came from, depending on kind of what influence. If it's more Cuban, Afro-Cuban influence, sounds very different than music that was invented or that was made from the Palladium or the 60s and 50s era from New York City. And so very jazzy, but it's still salsa, but it's a very different sounding kind of music. So I've always tried to connect myself to songs that really are a true representation of my personality, of what I like, and what I just love hearing in salsa music for myself when it came to that, and just keep pushing the boundaries of keep learning and keep learning new things and keep trying to interpret it differently when it came from a dance perspective. And then from a athletic perspective, just try to be faster, stronger, more flexible, and also add that element within it. So I think with the 10 championships, or just with my career, I've I'm a little, not a little bit, I would say I'm different than most salsa dancers based on the fact that I've trained in so many different styles. So my routines or my dancing in general is very influenced, or it's very obvious that I've done ballroom and I have very much strong techniques of that, and that I've done ballet jazz and contemporary. So I add elements that are more than just salsa.
So it doesn't like just turn into this kind of like more traditional, repetitive sort of.
And I think and the beauty of salsa is that how it kind of like, as ironically as it is, when you make salsa, there's a mix of everything, right? There's tomatoes, capsicum, onions, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of the same thing with salsa dancing, is that there's people that are more traditional. There's people that will interpret it a little bit different than anyone else, but there's room for everyone when it comes to it. And so there's room for someone who's more technical, there's room for someone who's less technical. It just, how do you want to interpret the music? And so you've been doing quite well. Is there anything that you dislike about your own work? Dislike about my own work, I guess it's normal, I am my own worst critique. So I think I'm always going to be like, every time I finish on stage, I'm like, oh man, that was terrible. Like, that didn't work well. That was bad. I think I can appreciate, like, when I stop becoming my worst critique and I stop trying to find all the bad things I did or the things I didn't do well. I think, I can, I think the only thing I try to look for is technical things. I think what I know that I'm good at and what I know that I like doing is I like to make people feel things. Like, I like to make sure that emotionally they are being, pretty much they're going through that emotional roller coaster with whatever I'm trying to interpret with me. So to make sure that it's genuine, that they feel that they know who I am as a person and my feelings and my emotions. So I only look at myself based on a technical standpoint. I'm like, you didn't do that right. You didn't put your toe hard enough. You fell out of that spin. I guess it's like less emotional too, because you can just be like, just very practical. Like, you know, that was the wrong pointed element. You didn't jump high enough. That was terrible.
But I guess you're always your own worst critique. Do you watch your videos back?
I try not to, because I'm always like cringing. But no, I do. It's sometimes better to watch. I think for myself, I like to watch the videos later on, because then I'm not as critically negative. Then I can appreciate it and be like, oh, that wasn't that bad. That was nice. Like, but if I just watch it right after, I'm like, nah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I do sometimes watch myself.
Yeah, cool. And you recently moved from Canada to Melbourne about 2 years ago.
Yeah, almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, and so what stirred the move, and why Melbourne?
Why Melbourne? Well, I'm from a city called Edmonton, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, in Western Canada. And so I'm from there, and I would say the comparison for all you Aussies is like the size of Adelaide. So it is a good city to like grow up and live, and it's practical, and it's very like, some people love it, and I will always remember my hometown. That's where I started, and I will appreciate, and I will always have a special place in my heart. But I always knew that I wanted to like get out. I wanted to leave. I love big cities, and I always had this feeling that I just would grow better if I left. So I growing up being like that, but then I also, when I started my dance company, like it was such a personal thing that I wanted to finish. So I knew it was a very weird time. It's like I wanted to leave, but I also felt really bad for my students and for what I was creating, because I didn't feel like I finished what I started. And so in 2016, I came to Brisbane for the World Salsa Solo, and that was one of the comps that I won. Got invited to come compete here, and that's where I met my now, I would say, like, really good friend, and currently the director of the school I work for, Alex Bryan. So he lives here in Melbourne, and he has a school here named Loco Mojo Dance. And we met earlier in 2016 during the competition, and then we met each other at the end of 2016 when I was here in Brisbane. And we just, during the event being here, we realized that we're very similar in how we teach, but a little bit different. And then he was like, hey, like, would you like to do an Australian tour in 2017? The middle of 2017, we can go to Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane. We can go to Christchurch and Wellington. Like, you're just going to have to do performances and teach workshops and privates. And I was like, oh my God, when? Let's do it. Like, it just sounded amazing. And so being an opportunist, I was like, hell yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, this is amazing.
So then that happened in 2017. And during the tour is when he said, look, like, in term 1 of 2018, a lot of my instructors are pregnant right now. So I need help. Like, I would need to have another instructor. Do you want to come for a term? Like, come for 4 months. Just a term, you don't have to commit to anything more. And then you can decide what you want to do. And I was like, why not? And it felt right. It felt right to, at that time, I also was finishing up with my dance company, and my students, there was a big there's one of the world championships that I compete in, and I was bringing them every year. So 2018 was kind of the final year that they even were like, look, Mario, we loved it, but and everyone I teach is an amateur student, right? So it's their hobby. It's like, we did it a couple years. This is really fun. I think this is going to be the final year. And majority of them kind of were saying that. So it just kind of was like perfect. Like,
karma. Yeah.
It was good that they like appreciated what we did so far. They wanted to try other things, or they wanted to not compete as much. And it felt right for me to leave.
Yeah. It's a nice life cycle.
Yeah. And so I came here to Melbourne, and then I had this whole plan. Like, I was like, I'm going to go to Melbourne. I'm going to live there for 4 months. I'm going to save up all this money, and then I'm going to move back to Canada, and I'm going to move to Toronto. I'm going to get an apartment, blah, blah, blah. And then a month in Melbourne, I was like, oh shit, I want to stay.
Yeah. Melbourne has that effect.
I love the city, and I loved the like all the students that I work with, and I loved the studio, and just, I felt happy outside of work. And I wasn't really feeling that when I was in Edmonton. Like, if it wasn't for work, my family, my friends, everything else, being in Edmonton, I was just like, not miserable, because I don't want to whinge, but it just wasn't my happiest. I knew I felt like I could have been happier outside of it. And so when I moved to Melbourne, I realized I'm actually happy. Like, this is great. This is what I wanted.
Is it hard to achieve that balance as a dancer, because you have so much time spent in rehearsals and, you know, focusing on performances and things? Do you find it difficult to achieve a life-work balance where you have like a fulfilling life outside of that?
Yeah, I think being a dancer, it's very interesting. It's like, you have, and sometimes we don't realize, we have such a strong sense of urgency with everything that we do, because we know that the life of an actual performer and dancer is very short. So it's like you can get injured, you can start getting old, you can, and you don't have that much time. It's like, and you're going to reach a peak, and then after that, you ain't peaking anymore. It's like, and it is what it is because it's a physical thing.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can get really caught up with being like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Okay, I did this show. What's the next show? What's the audition? And so you start to lose kind of the appreciation of the present moment.
Yeah.
And I think now, me being 26, I always complain. I was like, I'm so old. Just because I realize, and it's funny, it's like when I speak to non-dancers, they're like, you're not old, you're young. And I'm like, oh yeah, I am young. Yeah. But not as a dancer. Like, I'm getting old.
Yeah, because I feel like most 26-year-olds are probably only a couple years into their careers. And you've been into your career,
for God knows, for way too long.
Yeah, almost two decades.
Right? So it's sometimes can be difficult to have a work-life balance, but I think Melbourne maybe showed me that I was like, okay, I like being here in the city. So, and the other thing was, what can I take away from the city? And so I think the beauty, what I loved about it was I was able to work in the evenings and teach and be a self-sufficient adult that can pay his own bills and do everything. And then during the day, there's classes and courses for professional dancers that you can still challenge yourself as a dancer, and you can still learn new things, right? And so when I moved here, I realized, I'm like, wow, I have the ability to make money and do what I love and inspire people and help people with goals that they have in dancing. But then I'm also to nurture my own dancing during the day and have that balance, which was great.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really like Melbourne for that way, that it's just such a creative city and you can always just kind of be, even like in your personal time, engage in that creative part of yourself. So kind of just moving on to more of the dancing industry. Is salsa solely competition based?
No, not. I would say it's definitely not solely competition based. I think so. Salsa started as very much of a social street dance, and I think throughout the years, with kind of performances and events happening. So kind of the main thing or the biggest thing outside of social dancing, salsa dancing, is you'll have what we call congresses or events or conventions or festivals. And it's pretty much just like a huge party where the organizers of these events will either invite different instructors depending on their budget, and the size of the event will be international instructors or national ones. And then you'll have workshops during the day, you'll have performances at nighttime, and then you'll have social dancing, and parties and DJs or live bands, depending, right? And every event is different. So there's that's a very big part of salsa dancing. I think competition is very recent in the last like 5, 6, 7 years. It's much more recent, and it's taken a big boom. And I think it has brought in new influx of people that like to compete. Right? Because salsa dancing kind of looks at the world of ballroom dancing. And ballroom dancing has been structured and is much older than salsa, right? And so their culture of competition is huge. And kind of in salsa, they kind of were starting, or they've started kind of that same ideology, same culture of it. But I would say salsa dancing is not just competition. There'll be social dancing and performances. And then there's competition as well.
It's good to have that mix, I guess. And how do you balance the kind of the art form versus the athleticism of dance?
Personally, I guess I like to keep a healthy lifestyle. And when I was kind of around that 18, 19, 20 phase, I went to uni for a couple years, and then I told my parents to screw off, and I was like, I can't do this.
What were you studying?
Oh God, this is terrible. So I was like, typical me, I was like, let's go into business. And I was like, why not? And I was like, fine, let's do that. And then didn't like it. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll try. I like economics, so let's try like learning more about economics. that was terrible. Like the worst idea of life. So I was there for like 2 years and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like this is draining my life, not doing it. And then at that same time, I found CrossFit. And then I realized that I love working with one-on-one people.
Yeah.
Or a small group of people. And so I realized very quickly on, that's like, if I can help someone with their goals and be part of their journey, that is the most, and I get to make money of it, that is the most fulfilling thing I can do.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do for work. So then I realized I like fitness, I like being healthy, I like working out. And then I went to school to be a personal fitness trainer. So then now moving on to kind of where I am now, I think I try to find a good balance of like dancing and keep going to classes and keep being a dancer, but then also adding weight training and working out on top of that to kind of keep the body healthy and stuff. And just for my own mental release, I love it. It's my alone time. It's my time to just be at the gym, listen to the music I want to listen to, relax, take my time. I'm a very much of an extrovert, but that's when I'm like the most introverted in the gym, just because it's just my alone time.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of going off that, you know, what a dancer's body is like one of their most important tools. And you've been talking a lot about like injuries and also aging and things like that. But then there's also, you know, this kind of, the industry can place this importance on visual standards and physique. How do you think that the industry can do that without pushing kind of like an unrelenting scrutiny on how people look, which might push some other people out of the dancing spaces?
I think almost all dance forms outside of ballet is very much accepting. Yeah. Can be very much accepting on different sizes. I think the biggest thing is confidence, right? If you feel confident within your body, then you will attract, like you will then catch people's attention. Yeah. If you're if you feel confident in your own skin. And yeah, when it comes to in like the commercial world, the Latin world, there is a little bit of like, you know, the standard, or like there's an underlying kind of thought of what a dancer should look like. But then I think individually, if you're just very confident with yourself and your skin, then you kind of beat that mold, and people don't really people don't second guess you or question it. It's like, you're just confident.
That's great. Do you think it's been getting better in recent years, or has it always kind of been that way in more Latin dancing?
Yeah, I think it's been definitely getting better in more recent years. There's still obviously work to be done, I think, in certain dance forms, but I think as long as you're confident and you're healthy, and you're healthy and your body is in a good place, then you're good. Yeah. When it comes to that.
And how do you maintain like a good relationship with your body? You know, even with like the fear of aging and injury, like how do you think you're going to be dealing with those things in the future and kind of maintaining a healthy relationship?
Yeah, I think now being 26, I've had multiple injuries. I'm not naive anymore. Like I'm not like, oh, I'm a spring chicken, I'm just not going to warm up and just go full out. I can't do that. I don't have that luxury anymore that I used to. And then I've accepted it. It's like, I make a joke about it. It's fine. Like there's some days I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I'm so old and everything hurts. But I think you have to learn to listen, to understand your body, and then your body's changing, and just accept and do it. And it's like, okay, can't do this that much right now, or I gotta warm up a little bit more, or I gotta take care of it, and listen to it and just appreciate it, because it's, why fight it? Do you know what I mean? Like, why fight the fact that you're getting older, that you have to like stretch a little bit more or warm up a little more? It's like, if you want to keep doing it, then you just kind of have to. If you don't accept it, then it's like, then don't do it. But then there's consequences, right?
Bloody stretch,
right? Things like that. So yeah, I've got to enjoy kind of how my body is. And I think as you become older, you just become more mature. So I always tell people, I'm like, you know, recently I've been in these auditions for cruise ships, because I've been auditioning for cruise ships, and so I realize when I look around and I'm in these auditions, I'm like, oh my God, I'm one of the oldest people in this audition. Like everyone's 18.
What do you mean you're auditioning for a cruise ship? What does that mean?
So pretty much my partner and I, we been auditioning to be dancers in cruise ships.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
it's that's another very big thing in like the commercial jazz ballet world.
Yeah,
is to be a dancer in a cruise ship.
So the people on the cruise ship just part of that their trip is having dancers on board to perform for them, basically.
Yeah, so in a cruise ship they have like different entertainment. Like they'll have like depending on the ship that you go to, right, and the company that you're with. There's so many different out there. They'll have like either ice skating, dancing, singing, all that kind of thing. Yeah. But when I'm in these auditions, I realize I'm one of the oldest people here. Like the only thing I would want to change is have a younger person's body, but not have their brain. Just because, in a way, it's like when I think of myself being 2021, it's like it was different. Like I appreciate different things now. I understand a little bit more. Yeah,
that totally makes sense. I'd like to go back to when you were talking about teaching before and how important that is to you. Obviously, good teachers are really fundamental in the world of dance. I do a bit of dancing, and I like idolize my teachers. They're amazing, and I always feel so lucky they're being so generous with their skills and also just putting in so much effort to amateur dancers. It's really great. So what is your approach and philosophy to dance teaching?
I remember when you sent me this question, I was like, what is my philosophy? I was like, and I think the best way I can explain it is I want whoever I work with, and I know that like anyone, like when you idolize your teacher, you want to dance like them, or you like what they do. I think my biggest philosophy and how I want to teach people is I don't want to make copies of myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell someone how to interpret music. I don't want to tell someone how to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
I guess I want to help people understand how to control your body more, how to be faster, how to be slower, how to use your feet, how to build the proper mechanics to make you a better efficient dancer.
Yeah.
But then there's a line of like, however you want to interpret it, however it makes you feel, there's no right and wrong. That is how you want to do it. And I want to give people the skills, the physical skills of how to interpret music and get them to explore it, because that is the most fulfilling thing, is to put on a song and just dance to however you feel. You know, rather than being like, you need to dance like me. And there's some instructors that's what they value, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's room for everyone. But for myself, it's like, I don't want to see copies of me. I don't mind if you're inspired by me and you love what I do. Like, you do however you want to do it. Like, you interpret music the way you want to. And it's okay to pull inspiration from others. But I want to give people the tools to allow them to explore kind of their interpretation and their way of doing things.
Yeah, yeah. And can you remember a teacher that made a difference for you?
Oh, I've been lucky enough that I've had so many teachers that have given that. I think... I've had instructors from California, John Narvaez and Liz Rojas, that molded me when I started when I was really young. Yeah. And they instilled very much of a professional, their professionalism of how they run their classes and their company and their brand was very important. And other more than just the dancing, and they helped me a lot when it comes to that. I worked with an instructor named Anya Katzevan from New York City, and she also was very much a big believer of like body mechanics and everything, but how am I supposed to interpret the music? How do I want to feel it? I worked with other instructors, Tito and Tamara from Puerto Rico, that also kind of influenced the same way, just a little bit different. So I've been lucky enough that kind of my circle of instructors,
that's amazing,
have their own view of different things and what they want me to do, but also still respect that how I want to do things. So I think now, for instance, I'm at a point where I maybe want to compete in like a month. And so I realized that pretty much the song is very important for me. And so now all my instructors are like, look, this is the type of music you do it. Like, this is your song. Like,
Yeah.
no one else is going to use it, or like rarely someone's going to use it.
Yeah.
Like, it may not be my cup of tea, but we know that you're gonna kill it, or this is the way it's gonna make you feel really good. And when you go on stage, because you love the music and you love interpreting it, you're gonna make us feel something that is you.
Yeah, that's lovely. And kind of talking about that, you're, you know, practicing your choreography and things like that, and you're performing, but also teaching. In that broad spectrum, when do you feel most yourself?
I would say I genuinely would feel most myself when I'm practicing performing and learning, like, just in the studio dancing.
Yeah.
Teaching for me is still myself, because I think it's another challenge of working with people. And I love when a student actually is like, I don't understand what you're saying. And it's like, okay, it's like a Rolodex in your brain. Like, okay, I'm not going to explain it the same way I did because they're not understanding it, which is fine. How can you get this person to get it? Like, how can you rearrange your words? How can you approach it differently? And so that challenge is something I really like.
Yeah.
But I do love performing, and I love dancing, and I love being on stage. So I think my most, like, from a hierarchy would be performing at the studio, and then teaching. Teaching is a big part of my life. Yeah. It supplements the fact that I can be, you know, a dancer. But yeah, performing would be my truest.
Oh, lovely.
The most truest self.
It's great to hear how you bring just like the art form of it into your teaching. So you're kind of not being like, move your body like this and this is how you do this. But you're really trying to teach people how to bring in that spiritual aspect.
Yes. It's fun. And I think with teaching a social dance, because when you teach beginners, right, that's not something you're going to emphasize, right? Because they're just beginner. They don't know. They're like very much like nervous. It's like, no, let's just emphasize having fun and being able to dance with anybody in the room. Yeah. Right. And so then it's like a different feeling of that you're pulling out of them. And then when you get like a more experienced dancer, when it's like, okay, this is kind of your challenge now. Your challenge isn't like the beginners or the intermediates, right? So it's really fun.
That's awesome. And to kind of just go on from that, just to finish off, what can we see from you in the next 12 months? 12
months. Ooh. So both my partner and I, so as I mentioned, we auditioned for a cruise ships. And so we both got a contract together.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So next year in the end of, knock on wood, if everything goes well, we got the contract, we'll be leaving, and so we'll be on a cruise ship for the next 7-8 months.
Amazing.
Just dancing, performing. It'll be really fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's done it many times. Like 4 contracts, 5 contracts, and I've never done one. And kind of when I moved here to Melbourne and I entered the world of commercial dancing, which is something I never really done before. Like, I've competed a lot in salsa, and I have a successful career in Latin dancing, salsa dancing. But as a commercial dancer, I'm still relatively new. Yeah. And so when I moved here, I was like, oh, there's such a big there's so much endless possibilities in other dance forms rather than just competing in salsa and performing in salsa, which I still love. Yeah. But I realized being here, it kind of opened up my eyes to, I'm like, the world of dance and everything you can do is so big, and there's endless possibilities. And so I've been grateful enough doing shows here in Melbourne, being part of a commercial show. And then cruise ships was one of the things that I got exposed to, and I was like, oh, I want to try one. And I know myself, and I know that if I have the itch, I need to scratch it, because I want to try at least once and see what it feels like and do it. And so then, lucky enough, when I met my partner, he's done it and just feels right to do it together, and that's what we wanted. So next year, if all goes well, fingers crossed, knock on wood, we'll be on a cruise ship together for a majority of the year.
And where's the cruise ship go?
It will be a Caribbean cruise ship. So
amazing.
So we're gonna have a whole year of summer, which is great.
Oh, we leave, good. After being in Melbourne,
we leave cold and drizzly. End of February. Then we go to Miami, and then we'll be sailing through the Caribbean, and then we come back. The contract ends in November, so we'll experience a little bit of like fall, not really, and then it goes back to winter. So it's great.
Cool. And we'll be coming back to Melbourne? Or?
Of course. Melbourne is now home.
Thank you so much for plugging in and listening to my little podcast today. If you want to hear more of In the Arts, episodes are on all podcast apps like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Wherever you find your podcast, it will be there. And these are released each Thursday, probably until early March, unless, of course, I decide to make some more. Admittedly though, this is a bit of an experiment for me. I have no performance or public speaking experience, so I'm coming to this very green. So it would mean the world to me if you could let me know if you are listening and enjoying the show. You can do so by subscribing on one of those podcast apps. You can leave a review, which would be lovely, or you could even just do something like popping a screenshot of the episode in your Instagram story. You can tag me. My Instagram is Tahney, like the beer, Hans Super Dry. I'll pop this all in the show notes. Again, thanks for listening.